All right, here we go. We are going to get in some loop training. So I'm going to start first off just by understanding that everybody can get to loop. This isn't the intro to technology training. This is definitely a loop training. So I'm assuming that everybody that's watching this video can get to a page that looks something like this. This is basically your loops page for loop. If you're in loop at all, up top on the right hand side, these little icons, this kind of half smiley face will always bring you to this page. It may look like this in a list view, or if you hit this small button that's right here, it may look like this that's a grid view, a bunch of circles on there. Gotcha. To get here, you go in the middle under my eEdge control panel and hit My Transactions, and that'll launch you into loop. And I'm joined here by Barry in the class who may post some questions and ask some questions for everybody. So just so we know. I'm going to go over how to, good practices on starting a loop, how to name it, templates, folders, some naming conventions, adding people, and that as far as some basic intro loop information from me. So here we go. So once you're here, creating a new loop is pretty easy. You either hit this create loop button that's right here, or if you're in the grid view, you hit this big plus mark. They both do the same thing. So if I hit create a loop, first thing it wants me to do is name my loop. Now, as your broker now, I'm going to put this out there. Always name your loop an address if it has anything to do with a property. If it does not have to do with a property, let's say if it's a buyer loop for a buyer-broker agreement and buyer agency and stuff like that, then name it with that buyer's name, and that's your best practice there. So say if you're working with a buyer, you're going to start a loop, name it with the buyer's name. My suggestion is always just keep that loop with that name separate, and then when that buyer finds a property, start a brand new loop with the property address, copy the files from the buyer loop into the new property loop. That way when that buyer buys another property, because all buyers are going to buy 5 or 6 properties from you, right? You just have their documents stored in a loop, and you don't have to just remember the property that they bought 2 years ago. You have their documents that you had signed for them. So that's one suggestion I would make. Whether you'd follow that rule or not is not really a broker requirement, but just a good practice there. So if it's a buyer loop, does not have a property, put it the name. If it has anything to do with a property, make sure the name of the loop is the property address. So I'm going to put a property address in here, and I'm going to use a real address just so that you can see how it works here. Like I start typing that in, it's looking for all kinds of things. It sees that there's a loop already done that. There is Google Maps is finding that in Phoenix. It's also finding it in Colorado and Washington. When I click, you probably don't have one that's already started in loop, so this option would be here. So if you click on the Google Maps right there, what that's going to do is just pre-populate all the address fields to help. Now, if it's let's say you're a buyer and you're writing on a listing, you can, I'm going to switch over here real quick just to let's pull up a listing, and because we're with the office, I'm just going to pull up office listing. I'm going to go to some higher price listing out in somewhere. There's $973,000. Now let's go to $1.2 million one in Show Low. So if I click on that one, or I'm gonna, there's the MLS number 5794250. So if I start typing that 5794250, there it is. Source, Arizona Regional MLS number. It's going to import a bunch of information about that MLS, which is nice. So if I go ahead and click that, I do want to import that data. I'm going to wait for just a second though. Right here, you can select a template. I, as a broker, am creating these templates. You notice this one says listing pre-78, there will be a listing post 78, a buying pre 78, and buying post 78. That'll establish some folders exactly like what I'm going to talk about in this session. So it's going to kind of pre-populate some of those folders and make them for you. But in this session, I'm not going to use a template. I'm going to show you how to do it all on your own, lest there never be templates in there. So I'm going to hit this import data. It's going to suck in that data from the MLS, and I'm going to hit create loop. And here we go. 1920 South Knoll Trail, Show Low, Arizona. So the loop is divided up into multiple sections here. You have some tasks up top that you can put in, document section right here in the middle, local service providers, which is something that we don't really use here because we manage it that other ways, and then people down here. So notice it'll always have you in there, it'll have admin, and if we just did it through the MLS, it put the Lux group in there and named them the listing agent. Now I'm going to go ahead and name myself the buying agent, right? And of course I need a buyer, right? So I have the two agents, so I want to put the buyer in here. So I'm going to put in somebody who I know I have their email address in here. So let's go with, there she is, there, the kw.com. And I'm going to make her the buyer. You can put in their information if you want, all their address and marital status and that kind of such. This does sync directly with your market leader account. So it syncs with your, you notice I pulled up her, so it syncs with your database, which is great. Means if you're adding somebody brand new in here, it's going to show up in your database. If you're pulling up somebody who has already worked with you, then it'll pull their information in.
So why didn't you put Becky's information?
Because I don't have Becky's information in my database. It auto-populated her email address because that's all I have for her, right? As far as in my database, I don't have her address and stuff like that in there. If they're brand new to dotloop, it's nice to send them an intro email. It just is a dotloop generic intro email that says, hey, Chris invited you to dotloop. If you're about to share some documents with them, I don't send them an intro email because I'm about to send them a bunch of emails that tell them what to do. So that's not necessary if I'm about to send documents to them. So I'm going to go ahead and add that person that had a name and an address and an email address. I also like to put the in this specific case, I like to put the seller in there, but I don't add an email address because I'm not going to use the seller's. The seller's not going to collaborate in my loop. The seller's going to work with the selling agent in whatever system they've got. But I want it to pre-populate in all the fields. When it says seller, I'd like it to pre-populate so I don't have to write the seller's name over and over and over and over and over again. So I go back over here. Let's go and look at that detail. I'm going to pull in, I'm going to do, that just says Sutherland. I want something more than that. So I'm going to go to Monsoon and figure out who actually owns this place. There you go, property owner. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it right there. Now, yeah, that's two people. If I were using these as signatures, then I would need to add two different people, but I'm just using this to fill in the seller blank, so it's not going to matter that much. So I just told it seller, and I'm not going to add an email address, so I'm going to add that person. So now I've got buyer, seller, listing agent, buying agent, and the admin. The admin will always be there. That's basically me as your broker. It's Stephanie, it's Amanda, it's Scott. It's everybody who needs admin access in this account. So there you go. So I've got me, listing agent, the buyer, and the seller in there. So now up here in documents, I'm going to go add documents to create this. Now, as a buying agent going in here, I may have some buyer documents that had nothing to do with a property, like my buyer broker agreement, maybe buyer's agency, what else? Market conditions advisory, those kinds of things. The buyer advisory. Those are documents that I need to close this folder that I may have had signed by that client prior to ever going under contract on this specific property.
Is this a good place where I normally create a document on the if I had known them, say, 6 months ago, I know their name, I happen to know their birthday, anniversary, dog's name, kid's name, and I put that in the text file and store somewhere, so in case I have to refer it back.
So no, that should exist in your database in Market Leader or in KDB Command under that contact. So when you access that contact, you'll have notes on that contact that'll have that.
So that's the place.
Right, that's where it's for. This would be for any documents you've had signed by them. So maybe you met them 6 months ago and you got your agency, right, or the prequal or something like that. If it was 6 months ago, that prequal is probably expired. But if you got your agency, that doesn't have an expiration. That's you got that signed a long time ago. That document just gets used over and over and over again, right? They've already signed it. I don't need it updated. So that might live in here. So I'm going to say that I have those documents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this folder right here, and it's just going to be the buyer doc folder, right? So it has, I guess to make that make sense, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a folder and just put contract document folder. So now does that make sense why I have two different folders? So this is just the documents that only had to do with the buyer, and this is the documents that are going to have to do with this specific contract. So in my buyer doc folder, I'm going to go in and put in my agency. I'm going to grab these from templates here just to have them show up. Where are you? Association. Real estate disclosure and election. Buyer broker exclusive employment agreement. So you see those are some documents that don't have anything to do with a specific property. So that's where those would live, in the buyer doc folder, right? Then in the contract doc folder is where now we're going to write an offer. Like my buyer obviously loved this property. We're going to write this offer. Now I'm going to throw my contract documents in here. So I go to my templates. I have a template labeled buyer purchase that allows me to load a bunch of information in there, a bunch of already templated docs. I'm working currently on a broker-wide template folder that would allow that. So anybody would be able to use that, right? So anybody will be able to click on that and load the necessary documents in there. Some TCs don't like that because they use a little bit different naming conventions, but I'm gonna throw this in here just so that you see how a templated folder works. So this is my buyer purchase folder. I'm going to select all. I currently have two different purchase contracts in here, one to use one title company, one to use another title company. I just rotate back and forth just to, depending on whether my buyer wants to use one or not. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect the one that I know title company that I'm not going to use this time. The rest of it's all in here. Actually, I just looked. Like I have the real estate agency disclosure and election. I already have that because that was in my buyer's documents. So I'm going to deselect that. There's a bunch of stuff in here. This is financed.
And what happens if you make this document with the one?
I'll show you that.
Yeah.
Because there are definitely going to be some duplicates in here, and so we'll mess with that. This is in a multiple counter situation, so I'm going to deselect that. There we go. It's not built prior to 78, I don't think. Let's see. Built in 2003, so I don't need a lead-based information, anything like that. So you understand what I'm doing here. I went into my templates folder. I selected all of them. Now I'm just going to go deselect the ones that I don't need. That way I don't load my loop with a bunch of documents up front that I know I won't need. I have an HOA community addendum. Is this even in an HOA? It is in an HOA, but I bet, no, these guys don't. It's been on there for 94 days, but it should be on there. the agent, I might have to call Lindsay on this, should have loaded their HOA document into here with the seller's information already filled out. That's supposed to be done prior to listing, so you're supposed to get that from the seller. But I'm gonna need to fill that out myself, so I'm gonna leave that in there. So now I've selected my template set, and I've deselected the items that I don't want in here, and I go ahead and hit copy. Now you will see some documents, some dark bold looking documents, and then some light gray looking lines when I come through here. So you see these that are bold are documents. These that are gray are what's called placeholders. They're documents that I know I'm going to need, but I don't necessarily produce. But I know I'm going to need to get them. I don't produce the prequal. The lender produces that. So I needed the lender to send it to me, and I bring it in and I put it right here. I don't produce the title report, but the title company is going to produce that, and I'm going to put it right here. And I'll show you how that's done here in just a sec when I drag and drop some stuff. But now that I'm in here, here's my residential purchase contract. I click into that. Since I put in the listing agent, me, the seller, the buyer, I've got the street number and address and that kind of stuff that got sucked in from the MLS, sucked in some other good information about me and from the other people. I can hit autofill, and it's going to suck a lot of that information in there. Go ahead. There we go. So
your broker information will suck in from the template, or it's from the document?
If you put yourself in as buyer or as the buyer's agent, then it's gonna suck in your license number and stuff from you. It's gonna suck that in from your profile set up on .loop, because that's all background information that you've input on .loop, just in your account information.
Okay.
So here you go.
So the source where that information is coming from.
Right. It's gonna suck that in from .loop. So here we go. It sucked in all the information it can. You'll notice it's not everything. It sucked in the address, but it didn't bring in the assessor's number. Though, because I don't know, whatever, for some reason that didn't exist in what it pulled out of the MLS. That's why I like to keep my MLS number right here. So I know the assessor's number is this right here, the AN. So I can just copy that, go over here, paste it. Right. Legal description, it didn't pull that in. So I go over here. This is an abbreviation of the legal description. That's probably correct. But I like to go to Monsoon and pull the legal description off that, because the Monsoon actually sucks that in from, we suck in a lot of stuff in this, don't we? Actually sucks that information in from the county. So when I scroll down here, here's my legal description, and there it is, Lot 193, Sierra Pines, Unit 4. It does look like it's the same. If you're like, I don't know if I trust that fully, then I can hit this Navajo County Assessor's parcel right there, and it's going to take me to the tax assessor Navajo County there. So here's my full legal description here. Sierra Pines, Unit Number 4, Lot 193, per Plat 19-14 and 15, out of, I don't even know what that means, 210-44-158 for 99 roll. So if I want to be super accurate, I can take this, copy that, go right here, and paste it right there.
More is better.
Right. More is better. The more accurate, the better. You don't want your buyer buying the neighbors. That's not cool. Now you fill out your contract. This isn't a contract filling out class, but it's pretty easy to roll through. So, your purchase price, your COE, all that kind of good stuff. I have this pre-populated, so it kind of check marks and put some stuff where I usually have stuff. This has my title company already filled out in here because it is my templated purchase contract. Just keep going here. None. Got all the correct initials in the right places. I just like to double check things. I do want this home warranty. I need to put in a cost. This is going to be a big expensive house, so I'm going to put a $650 home warranty on it, and I want my seller to pay for it, so I've got those boxes already checked. If you want additional comments, throw some additional comments in there. I need to respond by tomorrow at 5 p.m.
Just a side question to this one.
Yeah.
Selling station, what price range you start for it?
There's not an answer to that. It just depends.
Somebody told me 300,000 you asked for 60% and negotiate wherever it falls.
I would say there is not a hard rule about that at all. I've had concessions on $150,000 sales and concessions on $750,000 sales. Just depends what's going on. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It has information filled out here. It has my associate Joe Gill right there, but it didn't have any of his MLS information, so I need to go put that in there. I can probably pre-populate that in my template. It put in the agents game. It put in Lux Group. Let's see where it pulled that from. Pulled that from when I added Lindsay McGregor in there. She calls herself Lux Group and .loop, so that's what it did. So I would need to go and change this to. That is not at all her last name. Totally messed that one up. So I could just take this and copy, paste.
I'm a big fan of copy and paste.
Yep, and so it's so easy. This is her information. Copy, MLS code, paste. Her license number, copy, paste. So pretty straightforward, and copy, paste, all that kind of good stuff all the way across. You probably want her phone number in here. There you go. Let's go ahead and copy and paste that one in there. There you go. Signatures, all that kind of stuff. I can hit save and share, and that's how it sends it off to, in this case, Rebecca Demos to sign this contract. So I'm just going to save it instead of share it, because Becky will probably go crazy if I'm asking her to sign a contract for $1 million. Not going to share that. So anyways, from that you get how I go and fill out a document that's within this loop. Once this document comes back fully signed, I send it over to the other side. They accept it and they send it back to me. What I like to see is some sort of, I clicked on it, didn't mean to, some sort of naming that tells me that this is the fully executed version of this document, right? And we're in this electronic world, so we end up with multiple versions of documents. You end up with, a blank one, and then one that's just initialed by your side, and then you send it over there, and it finally gets initialed by their side, and they send it back. So you've got 2 or 3 different versions of that document. Once it actually is fully complete, over here on the right-hand side, you've got these 3 little dots for everything. You're going to hit this 3 little dots, hit rename, and it opens up the name. And what I'm going to do is just call this the 1920 South Knoll purchase contract. And I sometimes write executed, but I like some agents have now just type FE, meaning fully executed. So that tells me that that's it, right? Mm-hmm. So I know as a broker, when I look at this file on the other side, know that this document is supposed to be the one that has all the right signatures in all the right places. All the initials, all the dots all the T's are dotted and the I's are crossed. So that tells me that. Get out of here. All right, there we go.
So now the previous copy, which was initially loaded,
it would exist. It would still exist. Like this one technically wasn't signed, but it would have been one that just had my buyer's signatures on it, and then when the seller sends the fully signed copy over, I would have that in here and upload it, and I'll show you how to do that here in just a sec. And you would have 2 different versions of it, right? So you take the version that's fully executed and write FE on it, and the other one that's not fully executed, just don't put the FE on it, and then I know which one is the one that I need to be concerned about. The other one's not there, right? The other one I don't need to be concerned about.
They can stick around, but not to.
Yeah, I would say in general,
Mhm.
a lot of people are like, you know what, I'm never going to need this thing right here, so I'm going to archive it.
Mhm.
In general, I don't want my agents archiving a whole lot of stuff, especially if it has any signatures on it. If it has signatures on it, if it's not fully executed, if it's just your side and it has signatures on it, then I don't want it to be archived. If it's a document that you threw in there by mistake and doesn't have anybody's signatures on it, doesn't have anything, then archive it, get it out of your way. I don't care about it either. But as soon as we have a client's interaction with it, then it needs a broker's eyes on it. And so don't archive it. I need to go approve it. And I can archive it after I've actually seen it and marked it that a broker has taken a look at it. Then I can archive it to get it out of the way. So if you are adamant about keeping your loop as clean as possible, and you're wanting to archive some of these things, send me that note. Just say, hey, this was a duplicate. Please archive. And that way I can go in there, put my little broker mark on it, and then archive it and get it out of your way. That's the best way to handle that. So from here, now we're under contract. We're going to get a bunch more documents like the EM receipt from title and the spuds from the seller and all that kind of stuff. These are what I mentioned. These are called placeholders.
Mhm.
So when you pull an EM receipt from title, they're going to email it to you. You're going to download it. I happen to right down here have some information. Like I have an LSU right here for what contract that I'm going on. So here's my loan status update. Here's where it is. I can take this guy right here and literally drag it right on top of LSU. Let it go. It's going to load that document into LSU, and now it turns. You see, it turned bold, right? So now I see that there's a document in there. This is not a spuds, but let's just say it is. If I've got it, I can drag it, drop it on top of my spuds, drop it down there. There it is. Now, let's say it's a document that you need your buyer to sign. Well, the spuds would have been something like that, but we can go in there. We'll go into this LSU because I might need my buyer to sign that. So if I click into this LSU document, let's see if they signed it here. They did not. So I need it. I got the LSU from the lender, but it doesn't have my buyer signatures on that. So I'm going to go add a signature, throw it right there, make it look nice, assign that to Becky, and save and share. That'll send her a note to sign it, right?
When you're in this form,
Yep.
there are two places to sign. When is each one? One is right above at the top of the form.
Let's read the contract. What's it say? The LSU. This is a loan status update. You're talking about the prequal,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So let me get into that later because that's more of a document question. So what have we done so far? We loaded a template into here. We started the loop. We used two different folders. So I have buyer docs and I have contract documents. We filled out a contract in here. All right, let's keep going. Filled out a contract in here. We put some documents in where these placeholders are. And we even added some information, added a signature field to one of these documents we dropped in here for the placeholder. And I think that's about all I want to go over right now. That's basically the basics of starting a loop, using the folders. I highly appreciate using the different folders for the different sets. I'm going to open up a listing folder just so you can, or a listing file, just so you see how a more complex listing arrangement went. Just as an example of what that file looks like. Here we go. So here was a listing that was for sale, right? This was one of our agents. So he has a listing docs folder. So this has all the exclusive right to sell, the MLS input form, the mold disclosures, the lead paint, Now, all the stuff that they had to get signed to make the listing go active, right? This specific property had a lot of offers on it. So he had quite a few offers come in, loaded everything in, and all of the rejected offers went into a rejected offer folder. Right? So these are all offers that didn't go anywhere. He even had some counters in here. He specifically did some very good naming conventions to keep stuff straight. But moreover, these are all rejected offers separate from the accepted offer in which they're working, which they're under contract now. So here's the accepted offer. And see, look, he put final. Final is his word for this is completely, yeah, this is completely signed and everything. So that's an example of a good listing document folder that, or listing document loop. So you have this listing that goes up, you have any rejected offers that sit in their own folder, and then you have the actual contract folder with the contract that's going to complete here. All right, I think that's going to conclude my .loop video for now, because it's at 31 minutes, and I don't know how many people are going to watch that long anyways. So I appreciate it. I'm definitely open for questions, and keep an eye out for the loop templates that I'm creating that will allow you to start the loop off in the right foot with the right folders and documents and placeholders. All right, appreciate it.